syntropic farming, it's a way of farming, but I think the major difference in between other farming approach, it's we try to simulate what the forest ecosystem does and replicate it in a food production mode. So we try to, as best as we can, to add the concept of succession and also the layer concept on the food production, using mainly, because we are in natural park, mainly native species.
So why choose to go in that direction of complexifying systems, of going for this syntropic kind of system, rather than doing what most people do, which is simplified monoculture efficient systems?
So when I first started in 2008 on this farm, we used to grow herbs mainly for exporting for northern countries of Europe. And this model was completely based on, although I was organic, in a more conventional organic mode, which it states we were based on a black plastic cover on the soil, and we used to plant all these herbs on top of these plastic beds, or raised beds, as we call them. And I was organic. So what I felt at the time, first of all, it was wrong, because when you have temperatures on summertime that reach easily 40s or 45, it means that if you are using a synthetic mulch cover, you are killing all the life on the soil. And I start completely, almost straight away, feeling this pressure of not treating the soil well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of death rates, a lot of problems on the plants, plagues, diseases, and so on and so on. And the demanding on water irrigation was huge. So the pressure of irrigation all the time, it was constantly there. And with this system, it's completely different. You work with life, you work with the soil, you give your focus. It's not the production. Well, obviously, in the end of the day, you need to produce. But your main focus is the soil. When you treat the soil well, with a lot of organic matter, a lot of mulching material, chop and drop, all this that we chop and drop stays on the top of the soil surface. And you start decreasing your irrigation needs completely. It's completely, I can tell you that I used to irrigate twice a day before. Nowadays, even with summer, on the summertime, I irrigate much less. We do irrigate more or less twice a week. So it's a huge difference in terms of quantity of water needed for fulfill the needs of the plants.
Yeah.
Okay, it's completely different. So this is why the principal reason that we do this type of farming here. It's because also the difficulties of the landscape. Mertula, it's well known for very tough summers, very concentrated rainfall during a certain periods. And I can tell you that I already experienced at least 4 droughts in different times in Mertula, tough droughts. And the period without any rain, it can be 8 months. And still, I will manage to produce without irrigating that much, because we look at the soil and we keep them as covered as possible. And that's why I think, answer your question, it's one of the main reasons why we do it in this way and not another way.
If I understand correctly, in a sort of conventional system, it's a very linear system where we bring in energy from outside in the form of water, of nutrients, of compost, of
Mostly everything.
fertilizer, everything. So all of that is energy, basically, that we bring into the system. And then we harvest it out and we take it out of the system.
Yeah.
It's very linear. And what you're trying to do is to
the
keep...
opposite.
Yeah,
It's the circulate or try to recycle your energy as much as possible without bringing in a lot of energy.
Okay, so to really try to be as circular as possible with energy and nutrients and everything that's on the farm.
Exactly. So normally what happens in conventional and other types of farming, there is a lot of energy coming, manure, plants, seeds and everything. So we try as best as possible to do it inside. We don't, obviously, when you are in this stage of the gradation, you need to, on the beginning to bring inputs. But afterwards, your system starts to balance in a way that you don't need those inputs that much. You need some from time to time, but not as much because all the materials that we cut down stays on the soil, so you decrease completely the needs of bringing inputs because of this. The life on the soil, they recycle everything that you put on top of it. So they decompose and mainly they transform all this carbon into food.
Yeah. Since we're on the topic of energy, big source of energy is the sun, right? I suppose that it's also something you're trying to do with this kind of system with the different layers is to maximize photosynthesis. It's to maximize the system's ability to capture sun energy and to feed it to the system, right?
Yes, so that's what the different layers of do. So the way that we mount everything, it's in order to capture the sunlight as much as possible. And with that, because photosynthesis is energy, it's energy disposed to all your ecosystem. So everything benefits. The biomass trees, they are here for be pruned. So they enter on this loop of pruning constantly. We mainly prune these biomass trees around 3 to 4 times per year. And you see this loop of growth. When they grow, when they shoot back, they consume energy and release energy through the others through the pruning. So it means that as they are pruned, they decompose sugars on the soil and mainly feed the life on the soil.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
With that, we have more energy being decomposed and released by the sugars and by the micro life of the soil, and it's mainly our food for our system.
Okay, so your trees are growing. The bigger they're growing, the more foliage they have, the more biomass you produce, the more photosynthesis is happening.
Yeah.
Some of that carbon captured by the plant is released into the soil through the roots to the microbiome. So it's already feeding the system. And some of it will be used to grow the tree, the branches, the leaves, the fruits, everything. And so when you're pruning and you're cutting those branches and leaves and then putting them on the ground, that's all of that energy, that carbon that is stored there, that decomposes, feed the microbiome, and is fed into the system as well.
Yes, right? And also the pruning also allows you to keep the plants on the right strata all the time, because you don't want them to start covering the light that other needs. So you need to prune them. So you need to conform them in a way that everything is more or less with their needs fulfilled.
Okay.
So we are in a 2019 ecosystem plot. At the time, we wanted to include on the tree lines as much as biodiversity as we could. So it's one of the densest tree line plots that we've got, with a lot of fruit trees and biomass trees. We have mainly the poplar that supports the grapes. So we divide the upper branches in two, and we prune them to create this kind of Y shape, Y shape. Okay. I don't know how long they will stay with this shape, considering that the poplar they need to be pruned a little bit more harder. But this is just a consideration that I need to understand. How can I integrate probably other species that will support the grapes, accordingly that I want to suppress the poplar for biomass and then allow them to grow back again. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We also have one plant that I consider very important to root establishment, which is the Cinara cardunculus. It's a kind of a wild variety of artichoke. Normally we use those when they bloom, this purple flowering. Normally we use them for cheese making.
For cheese making?
Yeah, for cheese making, because it's a natural compound that separates the protein of the milk from the sorghum.
Okay.
So you harvest those, you kind of grind them, a little bit of water, a little bit. When you are boiling the milk, you throw that solution into the milk which are boiling, and then after a while the protein separates from the sorrel and you make the cheese. It's a natural way of making cheeses.
Okay.
Yeah. For the root establishment, it's marvelous, because the root system of this plant can go as deep as 3 meters. So what happened, because it's a perennial species, after blooming, it starts kind of decaying. You can prune it, use it as a biomass, and because you are not disturbing the soil, all these roots galleries, it will be disposal for the dispose of the others.
So as you cut it down, the roots they die.
They die.
They just get digested kind of in the soil, and then they leave those galleries.
Yeah.
And so the tree can use that to grow their roots.
Yeah. And
okay, really interesting.
Go through. And next year, I don't need to seed or plant those. They will shoot back again. And then we have the Nespero, wild pistachio for biomass. I want in future to try to graft some pistachio here, just in order to see if they work.
So right now, this is a tree that's just there for biomass.
Yeah, I would say that if we find a more drought-tolerant pistachio variety, I would go for it.
Yeah.
At the moment, the ones that I found in Portugal, it's more a conventional variety for production. So I'm trying to understand if I can find a kind of a Moroccan variety of pistachio, even if it's less productive. But I would say that for me, it would make more sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the idea with the grafting? Is it to use already established plants that has established roots and to grow stronger, faster? What's the...
Yeah, the grafting, it's to have a more adapted root system. And in top, you have a more pleasant variety that gives you the fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you benefit of the more drought-tolerant root system.
Yeah.
The same with the queens, the same with the grapes, the same with so many others, like the hawthorn as well. You can graft the hawthorn. You can graft the almonds or the bitter almonds, and have some peaches or apricots on top. Yeah, you play with this mosaic.
Okay. Just a quick pause to tell you about the official partner of the Deep Seed podcast, and that's Soil Capital. Soil Capital is a company that accelerates the transition to regenerative agriculture by financially rewarding farmers who improve the health of their soils. They are an incredible company. I love what they're doing, and I'm super proud to be partnering with them for the Deep Seed podcast.
You see, if you put your hand here, you feel the moisture. Yeah, and here it's completely fresh and wet.
Yeah.
And the color of the soil is completely different from the one that we seen above.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the composition materials that, and to reach the soil, the soil layer that we encounter here, you need to go
Like really deep.
You need to go deep. As you can see, it's already over 60 centimeters, and I still don't touch it.
Yeah. So you have a good 60 centimeters plus of this,
and
this beautiful soil.
If you smell it, you see it's like forest. The camera cannot smell it, but we can. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Right, that's bad. Yeah, beautiful first floor
this,
kind of smell.
It's this feeling of life, of beauty, the feeling connected.
Yeah.
This is what it makes.
And so, how old is this system here where we're standing now?
This system is from 2019.
Okay, so it's just 5-6 years old, and you already have this amount of the topsoil built.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, we have a study by the Algarve University, and the comparison was made with our system on, I think we had like 3-year-old system at the time, and the comparison was made with organic farmer, which have 8 years of operation, and a conventional farmer with 30 years of operation. I can tell you that comparing with the organic farmer, we have 4.5 times more carbon per square meter than the organic farmer.
So with your 3-year-old system, you had more, 4.5 times more than the 30-year-old organic system.
Yeah.
Right.
And the 30-year-old conventional farming system, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, of course,
It's a huge difference. So this system, what they do, it's create soil, top soil.
Yeah.
The classification of the soil in Mertula, it's E.
Yeah.
So you have these levels A, B, C, D, E. Mertula is E. It's the worst soil that you can encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the country.
Yeah.
One of the worst.
Which makes what you're doing here even more important, is to show how these systems can make food systems more resilient in parts of the world where the soil and the environment is really harsh for growing food.
I guess obviously the contexts are different. I cannot compare my system with the system that is further north in Europe. But if we can build this here, I can imagine that others can do it, because we are in a really harsh condition site. Lack of organic matter content around. I can tell you that the surroundings of Mertula, the content of organic matter levels, it's around 0.2, 0.5, 0.8. Yeah, so it's a huge difference. Yeah, we are just analyzing our soil now. We didn't receive the results, but I'm completely expectant to see what are our levels of organic matter.